Yes, it's so good to see you both again.
All right, I'm going to turn the spotlight on to you all. Evelyn, thank you so much. That was an amazing introduction. And once again, audience, if you would like to engage Christina and Lauren in chat or Q&A, talk about how much you love their books, ask them anything, you may do so through chat and Q&A, and Evelyn and myself will make sure that they get that. All right. It's all you.
Oh.
So
Hey, everybody.
Please tell us what the Soulmate Equation is about. For those people who haven't read it already, which I have a feeling a lot of our attendees have, but tell us what it's about.
Sure. So I'm Lauren. This is Christina. The Soulmate Equation is a story about Jessica Davis. She's our first single mom character, and she is a freelance statistician. She's very comfortable in her job and her life and her routine. She is not interested in dating until her 7-year-old daughter is older and out of the house. But her best friend, Fizzy, who is a romance novelist, is having none of this plan. And so she drags Jess along with her to this new biotech company that's about to launch. It's called Genetically, and they have a DNA matchmaking service that Fizzy is very interested in hearing about. Jess is very skeptical. But Jess has a low moment one night and ends up doing the test. She spits into the vial, mails it off, and forgets about it until she gets a notification that she has matched at an unprecedented level with the founder of the company, a man named River Pena, who also happens to be a regular at the coffee shop where she works, and she knows him and she does not like him. So that's where it starts and sort of where the book launches.
Yeah, it's a great story for everybody listening. I really enjoyed it. There's a lot of statistical information that she knows. Are either one of you mathematicians or statistical?
No, Lo has a PhD in neuroscience, so that came into play with a lot of the science stuff, and also she's just real smart.
But I don't know a lot of I'm not a mathematician by any stretch. And so, one of the things that we talked a lot about was how much of that to include, because, the reader needs to trust that Jess and River know what they're talking about. So there has to be enough in there that it feels authentic and it reads clearly to people who are in STEM, but not so much that it loses the romance readers who really aren't there for math, So it was a balance.
So you have a PhD in neuroscience.
Yes.
So you did that obviously before you became a writer, or were you doing it at the same time?
Well, kind of both. So I got my doctorate, and then I had a job of working on retinal disease and cognition, which are kind of two not necessarily related fields, and movement disorders. And I was writing for fun, just as a hobby. And that's actually how I met Christina. We were both writing fan fiction online in our spare time as a hobby. And then once we met and we started writing together, we wrote books, and then the book sold, and then they started doing well. And so we were both able to leave our jobs. But yeah, I was a full-time scientist for about 13 years after I got my degree.
Yeah. I have to say how much I love hearing about all of these published authors who got their start writing fan fiction. Mm-hmm. Because I had my time when I used to write fan fiction with my friends, and it was always something like that at the time, like nobody really talked about that they were doing. It was like, you do it in secret, and like it was just not, it wasn't looked at the way it is now, which is, just a great way to exercise, your writing, to strengthen your world building, your characterization, playing in, a sandbox that has some toys that have already been put there. So I love that you got your start in fan fiction.
Oh yeah, I had never written for fun ever. I learned how to writing fan fiction. Like when we first started, I was still confused as to exactly, does the comma go first, before the quotation mark or after, or what? But it really, not only like anybody who wanted to be a published author, we would tell them that if there is something you love, writing fan fiction is a great place to start, because not only do you learn how to write, you learn how to interact with readers, You learn how to take criticism. You learn how to basically, have an online presence and not be a jerk online. And when we first started querying, we thought that we needed to be super serious business, and we had like deleted our fandom Twitters. We've never, and I don't even think, we didn't even tell like our agent at first that we wrote fan fiction, because we just thought that it was going to be something that, was looked down on. And so it's so wonderful now to see people going, no, this is an awesome thing. This is people who learn how to write and learn how to do all these things.
We have a question really quickly. I want to mention a few months ago, we did like a program with a bunch of sci-fi speculative fiction authors where they all played Among Us together and talked about their work. And one of them, Mike Chen, was talking about how bad he is at bluffing. And then we got them all talking about fan fiction. And he's like sitting in there, like basically like killing off the rest of the crew, straight face. And I'm like, that's how you get Mike to bluff. All right, Evelyn. Oh, now we have two questions. Okay, I'm going to take Angela's question, and Evelyn, if you would like to.
I got it.
Okay, I got Angela. Okay, names are important in the book. Did you have to think hard about each character's name?
So we knew that we wanted the women in Jess's family to all have names that start with J. So her mom is Jamie, her grandmother is Joanne. It's Jessica, obviously, but because Jess has always felt like her name was sort of ordinary, we wanted to choose an ordinary name, first of all. So her name is Jessica Marie Davis. But we wanted her to have a daughter that had an interesting name that started with J. So she chose Juno. And actually Juno was a name that we had used for a book character that we really loved, but the book itself just wasn't working. We only got a little bit ways in before we realized it wasn't going to work, but we liked the name. And so Juno was it. But one of the bonds in this book between Juno and River is that they both have what Juno calls unique names. So she's been told that she has a unique name. She doesn't have a weird name. She has a unique name, and that she should be proud of it. So River sort of bonds with her over their names being unique. So she asks him, like, she says, you have a unique name too. And then she asks what his middle name is, and he says it's Nicholas. And she's like, that's less interesting. But so for us, choosing those names was intentional and very fun.
Okay, great. Stacy Mencher has a question. She says, this book reminds me of the Netflix show, The One. Have you guys ever watched it?
So we had turned this book in, and then I saw a commercial for the show that they were like going to be filming the show, and I realized it was a book. And so I read the book in a panic, thinking, oh my God, has this already been done before or something? And it just goes to show that like you could give two writers the exact same premise and they would write wildly different books, because The One is a thriller. And so it does not have a happily ever after. And it basically is that some scientist has found the soulmate gene. So like, one specific gene, so you have one soulmate. And I loved the book. I only watched a few episodes of the show because I didn't think the show was as good as the book.
Okay. Yeah, the book sounds interesting. I never got to read it or watch it, but it sounds good. But I love rom-coms better than the thriller. So
yeah, it's definitely a thriller.
Stick with your books.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell everybody listening how you guys do your writing process? Because you're not always together. You live in different places. So how does that work?
So we like to outline in person. One, we just like being together, but two, there's just more chemistry, I think, in the process when we are in the same room and we're kind of bouncing ideas around. We're cooking meals, we're talking about the book. We're going out running errands, we're talking about the book. We're doing something fun, we're talking about the book. So it sort of bounces in and out of our day. And we can kind of let the ideas consolidate a little and then return to them and make new ideas. So that is our favorite way to do it, but the pandemic made that a little hard. So the book that we just finished, we actually outlined over Zoom, which worked okay. Like, I think we made it work.
It's not ideal, but nothing in the pandemic was, so.
Right.
Yeah. And once we have some semblance of a story, we start creating a spreadsheet outline, because we need to have a pretty solid outline so that we each know like what's happening next. It'll change as, sometimes you write something and it surprises you, but in general, it's good to have a plan. And then we go to our respective places. I live in California and she is here in Utah. And we usually write every other chapter. So if it's an alternating point of view, we'll each take a character. But if we're writing a single point of view, such as in the Soulmate Equation, we just take turns writing each chapter, and we usually write in tandem. So it works, and we put it together and we edit a ton. We spend a lot of time in edits. We really want our books to feel like they are smooth and not disjointed at all because they're from two people. So that's always been a priority for us.
Yep. That's funny. Just as you were saying that, somebody asked that question if you alternate chapters. So,
yeah, that's funny.
Let's see. We have an anonymous question. This book was a perfect blend of comedy and emotional. Are you big rom-com fans?
We love rom-coms. But also, like, we just like to laugh, and we like characters that are funny. That's one of the sexiest things to us. And so our voice tends to be a, more comedic voice. But yeah, I mean, like, it's funny. We were watching The Proposal, and my husband was like, he finished watching it and he said, "Oh my God, I loved that so much. Like, I like that kind of thing." And I was like, that's what we write.
It's like our books.
Does he read your books?
He does now. He didn't used to. He's not a big reader, but he has listened to them. So particularly our standalones. He likes our standalones. He will tell anybody he meets to read The Honeymooners, because he says in that book in particular, he can hear Lo and I talking. He hasn't read Soulmate Equation yet, but that he just bought it.
Okay, well, I have read it and listened to it, and the audiobook was excellent. It really was. So he has something to look forward to.
Patty Murin is amazing.
Yeah, Patty did an amazing job.
Yeah.
She's so great.
Do you get to pick your audiobook narrators?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
We're very lucky.
Has she done other books of yours also?
She's done the last three. So she did
great.
In the Holidays with John Root.
Right.
No, she did Honey Don't List with John Root, and that was actually nominated for an audio award. They were so fantastic in it.
Wow.
And then she did In the Holidays, and then she did this one.
Yeah.
I don't think we'll ever let her go if we can help it.
Yeah,
She's amazing.
She played Anna in the Broadway production of Frozen.
Oh wow.
And and she's just so wonderful. She's an actress, you know what I mean? And she just brings that like level of performance to her audiobook narration. It's wonderful. I mean, we wrote the book, and when we listen to it, it feels like something new.
Yeah, I'm a big audiobook fan, and it was wonderful.
And if Evelyn says an audiobook was wonderful, it's really wonderful, because Evelyn is like, I think you're one of the biggest, if not the biggest consumer of audiobooks at Syosset Library.
That's amazing.
I love them. I love to read. I love to listen. I love to do both. It's great to have it on audio to hear the voice. And then it's also great. I listen mostly in my car to come in the house and then keep reading. So I have the audiobook and the physical book also at the same time. So
absolutely.
Unless you don't want the book to end, then you have to do it really slowly. But
we have a question, and once again, audience, we've encouraged questions, so please feel free to throw them out. Somebody says, anonymous says, River was so hot. Was he based on anyone you know?
Ooh, good question.
I mean, I think there's a little bit of people we know in each of our characters. I think that's one of the ways that we are able to make them feel like they're real, is we pull, little traits from people we've met or people we're close to. But none of our characters are ever like, directly based on, modeled after somebody. I would say River's a little bit like my husband. My husband's like biochemist. And so I think when we were thinking about and he's very ambitious and he's very, very much loves his job. So I think when we were thinking about how River would react in the conflict part of the book, I'm not going to spoil it for anybody, but when we were thinking about how he would react then, it was easy to sort of model it based on my husband, because my husband would also shut down in the same way that River did. And so it didn't feel like that big a stretch to figure out how to write that.
I like that he was like a type of guy who like lived in his head.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think, in a lot of ways, River is also at the beginning of the book, he's very Mr. Darcy, I think. He comes across as surly and short, but a lot of it is just because he's shy and a little bit socially awkward. And so you learn that about River as you get to know him better and as Jess gets to know him better, when he takes her to the party and she has that realization that he's not a jerk, he's just very shy. And so, I think we like to draw influences and draw inspiration from books that we've loved and literary heroes. And, it's all just a big inspiration pool, so.
Yeah, I didn't actually think of the Darcy connection until you literally just said it.
Well, and in the lab, he basically calls them, absolutely average, essentially, so
That's true. I didn't pick up on that. Oh my gosh. So is this slightly a fan fiction of Pride and Prejudice? Maybe just a little bit.
It's not really. I think what we wanted there was for his words to not be an insult in his mind. I mean, for a scientist, average data is actually what you want. You want data that falls in the expected range. And so he wasn't really trying to be a jerk with it. He was saying, these are not going to be women who throw off our curve. They're not going to give us anything that, scares us this close to the launch. But Jess heard it and she's looking down at what she's wearing and like, I'm average. So it's, it's a nuance, but there's a little Darcy there.
To average, to most people, average is almost an insult, but
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think Mr. Darcy's whole like backhanded compliments to Elizabeth were way harsher.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Even though you're and this and that. Definitely a harder like oopsie than average, and then talking about scientific data, like I'm not calling you average, better save there.
Yep.
Evelyn, you want to take this question?
Oh sure, Jess, give me a sec. Okay, Fizzy was awesome. She's a romance writer. Was her friendship based on yours?
I think a lot of the conversations that Fizzy and Jess have are very reminiscent of conversations that we have. There's like a conversation where he has just bought them coffee and he walks out and Fizzy is just like, she goes, what just happened? My vagina unfurled like a flower. And that's just like something over the top, not to be dramatic, or something that we would say to each other. And that like nobody calls me on my crap faster than Lo does. I'm always just like, will you let me live? So yeah, a lot of that. Obviously, she is not us. We made Fizzy. She's a little bit more of a caricature, I think, of a romance author, that she has these kind of crazy plots. She can always like pull out some book she wrote, like, well, in the Master's Delight, or whatever, I wrote that, da, da, da. She wrote Jess into one of her books as a villain, thinking that she could kill her off, and then she couldn't. And we've never actually like wrote someone into a book. And we do write down things people say, but maybe not like in the comical way that Fizzy does, which is what's fun about her, is that she can sort of be.
She can be zany in a way that like in real life, it might be, a little over the top.
Yeah. But their friendship, it feels very similar to our friendship.
Yeah.
You guys have been writing together how long? How long have you been?
12 years.
Yep.
Yeah, 12 years as of next month.
12 years?
Yeah.
Well, actually 27 books in 9 years.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And actually more than 27, because we have one that's written and not published yet, and one that we wrote that got us our agent but did not sell.
Wow.
29 books.
Yeah. But I mean, we have matching tattoos the way that, Fizzy and Jess do. And we are each other's ride or die.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. That's so great to have such a wonderful friendship.
In the chat, Jill says that it was refreshing to see a single mom that was just satisfied with being a single mom.
Yeah, that was really important to us. We wanted to, we really wanted to write a story with a single mom, and we didn't want Juno to be just another responsibility on Jess's plate. We wanted Juno to be additive to the book.
Certainly was.
Yeah, we wanted her to feel like a real character and not sort of a caricature of a child. So that was really fun. And so the generational relationships, the relationship between Juno and Jess, between Jess and Jamie, her mom, between Juno and her Nana, those were all really, really fun to write. We really liked writing those family dynamics.
Okay, we have a question. You mentioned you outline before you start writing. How much details do you outline? Have you experienced you are going unexpected directions while you are writing?
Great question.
We outline really quite extensively now, more so than we used to, I think, because
we've just learned it helps us.
Yeah, and also, our like books, there's the relationship obviously, but there's so much more going on in some of them, and so we have to keep stuff straight. We have to outline because there are two of us. And so you just cannot be a pantser, at least in our experience, when you have two people writing. And a pantser means that, there's outliners and there's pantsers. They just like go by the seat of their pants, and you just cannot really do that. So our last couple of books, we've outlined more extensively. In fact, the one that we just turned in that comes out next year is like our kind of play on Romancing the Stone meets The Hangover. So it's got like a treasure hunt, and, all kinds of stuff. And so we really needed a lot of details because there's a treasure hunt they have to go on. There's like an actual quest. And our outline is like, how many pages long?
Well, for this one, our outline was like a really big spreadsheet. For Sexy Clue, the outline is about like 40 pages long.
Yeah.
Wait a second. Did you say it was called Sexy Clue?
So the book that we're writing right now is a take on Sexy Clue. We don't have a title yet, but it's like a sexy murder mystery.
Now I'm just trying to think, like, actual Clue is pretty sexy too. Just I don't think it's intentionally sexy.
Yeah. No, actual Clue is like hilarious and zany and sexy and fun and like ridiculous. And we want to hit at least 3 of those, hopefully including sexy and funny.
Yes. So excited to read that now. That's one of my favorite movies. And it's very difficult, I think, like anything with Tim Curry in it is just like,
oh my God, I love him.
Yeah. So we have like a sexy French butler
ooh,
in ours. So
very nice.
That we look forward to that. So how long does it take you to write a book?
I mean, we always joke that it takes us as long as we have. We've had to turn around books. Like we did a rewrite in 5 weeks where we started from scratch on a book that we wrote and it just wasn't working. And our editor was like, this book is great, but it's not these characters' books. That was one in a series. So we had to rewrite it quickly. And then we've had books where we wrote it and then it took 9 months to do edits. So it basically took over a year. I think our ideal amount of time is 4 months.
Yeah.
4 months of like non-travel writing time where we can be home and working almost every day is like the best for us. We can do it in less.
Wow.
But we prefer not to.
You get up, are you like super early morning writers or?
It sort of depends. I mean, I tend to write first thing in the morning just because I feel like that's when my brain is fresh. But Christina, she'll sometimes write in the morning and then sometimes she'll just get into a groove where she's writing in the evening. And we both have kids and we have, husbands that have different job schedules and stuff. So I think it just sort of depends on what life opens up for us, right? It's nice that we can be flexible. But sometimes it's hard because we have to switch our routines around a lot.
Sure, of course, especially when you have kids. You never know what's going to, things are unpredictable at that time. That's for
especially
sure.
in the pandemic when they are doing virtual school at home.
Right. That must have been very difficult. Did that make the writing more difficult during the pandemic?
I mean, yes and no. Like in a way, it was hard having them home and just like feeling inspired. I think I had a hard time reading because when I would be sitting in the living room or something reading where I usually would read by myself, there'd be like people asking me to make a quesadilla and like, kids, siblings squabbling and stuff. But at the same time, I wasn't driving them all over the place. And so I did have more time at home where I could write. So I think it was It was okay. We fared pretty well, I think.
Yeah, I just need to be left alone to write and just not have any distractions. And so even though my daughter is older and doesn't really need much, she's still here and noisy and dogs, it's just, yeah, just got to write when your brain goes, okay, here's some words.
Mm-hmm.
Is this the first time you guys have been together?
No, we were together in April.
Oh, good.
And then before that, we hadn't seen each other since October, but we had what we had done in October because we had a book out in the holidays. So we had
Excellent also.
thank you. We had quarantined for 2 weeks and then we drove and met in the middle of between our houses and rented a house for a week with our kids. And that was actually super fun.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah.
It's really nice that you were able to do that.
Yeah, we really love that. Somebody asked if this is a standalone. So this book, yes, this book is a standalone. We have heard a lot of people asking us lovely requests to do a book for Fizzy. And so that's definitely bouncing around in the ball pit of ideas in our brains, but we don't have a plan yet to write that book. So
most of your books that you've been writing now are standalones. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And even our series can stand alone. Like each of the Wild Seasons and stuff, they're their own couple. So.
Yeah. And what was the first book you guys wrote together?
The very first book we wrote together, the very first thing we wrote together was we started to write a really terrible thing. We thought since we were going to be serious writers, we had to be really serious. So we started writing a book about a man whose husband dies and this woman who sort of is going to bring him back. Yeah. Yeah. And that just did not work for us. It was depressing. And so the first thing we finished was a YA book because we initially thought that we would be YA authors. And it was a book with Greek mythology and skinny dipping. And it was just very fun. And they got us our agent, but she was very honest that she was like, there's a 50-50 chance I can sell this because it was paranormal romance. And there was sort of a lot of that in the market at the time. And so that was the first thing that we wrote together. And we have never published it. It's still sitting on our computers.
Any plans to try and revamp it? Or is it just like that one that you're just like, I'm okay with that being there?
No, I think we're going to come back to it. It's a really great story, actually. We just have to make it work for who we are now. I mean, when we look at it, we go back and read it, it's like an amateur book. There are phrases that we rely on. There's tropes that are sort of like 2000.
Outdated.
They feel very 2011. People aren't really doing anymore. So we need to, I think what would be best is for us to both read it carefully and then just like rewrite the whole thing to be more like modern for Christina Lauren. But it's such a good story and it's such a good world. I don't want to abandon it.
Yeah.
It's funny you say that. So, this is like this time period. I mean, I guess like the last 20 some odd years, everything changes so quickly.
Yeah.
Especially because of technology. But, when I was first like out of college, the idea of internet dating was still weird. Like if you met someone on the internet, automatically that meant you were going to be kidnapped and no one would ever see you again. And that's weird. Like, why would you want to meet someone on the internet? And now it's basically, like apps are pretty much commonplace. So like when you were coming up with the idea for this company, did you look at a lot of the different dating apps to kind of figure out how it would work?
Well, when we wrote My Favorite Half Night Stand, we did a ton of research on dating apps and had some of our readers in our Facebook group do a questionnaire and stuff. So we learned a ton. So when we were writing this book, we had an idea for like a soulmate book, but we didn't know how to, what we were going to do with it. And then at the time we were both doing 23andMe. And so not only are you learning about your ancestry, but you're learning all of these traits about your health, but also random things like, what kind of hair you most likely have, or how heavy a sleeper you are, or if you have a certain kind of earwax, or, these kind of really weird things. And then Lo was following the Theranos scandal and had read Bad Blood, which is a book about that. And if you don't know, Theranos was this company that had promised a lot of really big companies and had taken a lot of investment money that they could with a single drop of blood, a machine that would just take a drop of blood, they could just do all of these tests and just tell you everything. And then it ended up not being true. So we kind of put all of those things together. We really liked the idea of this like big up and coming biotech with something that could really change the world. And so in doing that, Lo's science background helped because she was able to kind of go, if I was going to invest in a company like Rivers, what would I need to tell me that it was real? What kind of research would I need them to do and stuff, you know, to invest in it? And so that's sort of how we came to that idea for the book.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and dating apps change a lot. I felt like you had like a really good blend of not making it too specific to, because the idea of swiping was not a thing when I was younger and I tried online dating. I mean, now they all have swipe left, swipe right. I like that it was sort of like it wasn't so specific that if that becomes passe next year, that people are going to read the book and be like, oh yeah, this is so 2020, nobody swipes left or right anymore. And I also liked that you had that whole 23andMe part to it, because that's extremely big right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's, and there are companies who've tried to do DNA matchmaking. There are a few, if you look for it online, and they've not been successful to date, in part because they're looking like sort of like they do in the one, they're looking for one gene. And, it's really hard to imagine that you can find the perfect person for you when you align in one gene out of 20 to 25,000. Plus, like, if you think about biological matchmaking in any form, whether it's DNA or blood markers or whatever, like, you're going to have to know how these things correlate with things like long-term happiness in relationships and sexual attraction and personality tests and all this kind of stuff. So it's a much bigger study than just looking at a biological marker. You actually need to look at more behavioral cognitive measures as well. And that's a huge study. Like, that's just years and years and years. And I think most companies don't have that funding or that time.
Yep.
So it's easy to do it in fiction. It's much harder to do it in reality.
Right. Things are always easier in fiction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jill said, I appreciated Jess's comments at first that dispelled the idea that genetic ally was a eugenics thing. Yeah, that actually, that was a good comment. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, that was super important to us because the point is it's not similarity, it's compatibility. So like, my soulmate might be in Singapore, her soulmate might be in Turkey. Like, it's not about being the same. You're not looking for the same genes. You're looking at patterns in the DNA, how they correlate with happiness measures in relationships, and like what that can predict for you. So, I mean, like we said, it's really hard to imagine how you could do that realistically, because it would be like 20 years, that study. But yeah, that was super important to us. So I'm glad that you
Now that I think of it, have you read E.K. Johnston's That Inevitable Victorian Thing?
Mm-mm.
That was kind of an interesting book as well, where like it has like a whole like a royal family of Britain thing going on with it too, but where everybody is required to put their DNA into this pool, and you're automatically matched when you turn a certain age. But it was that went in interesting directions as well.
Sounds like it.
Yeah, but this was just like, it was so refreshing. And Evelyn knows I read like dark book after dark book.
This was a good change for her, though.
Oh my God. It was like a nice, cool, fruity cocktail with an umbrella in it.
Like,
I love that.
Listen, that is all we want. We want readers to pick up our books and walk away from them feeling like they just went on vacation.
Yep.
If that's what we give readers, that's all we care about in life.
Yep.
So because this is a BYOB, and Evelyn and I are on the clock, so our drinks have to be after we sign off. But did you have beverages with you? And what are your beverages of choice?
We have sparkling water. Oh wait, Lo has wine.
I have wine and water.
Okay. Excellent.
Yeah, I just have water, nothing too exciting for me,
Yes.
unfortunately.
Yes, go with this.
Real
Sorry, my
life
daughter
gets-
is literally
real
asking
life
if she can
gets
have
in
an
the
ice cream
way.
before dinner.
Oh yeah, we had the ice cream man go by before, and my kids were like, "Oh, we have money," and we're like, "Yeah, no, you haven't had dinner yet." So
I was like, no, it's not dinner time. She's like, well, her daughter's having one. I was like, fine, go have an ice cream. I don't care.
My counter is.
I liked that the cat's name in the book was it Pigeon?
Yeah.
Yes.
That was adorable.
That's all her. This one. She names the pets usually. I name the people, she names the pets.
I never named the people because I just like Lois very thoughtful about it. She thinks like where they're from. Sometimes it's just a name that we love. Sometimes it's because we need a fairly specific name. But usually she's like, when were they born? Where are they from? What is their family like? You know, and that's how she. But I'm just like, you know, oh, their name is
Candle.
Candle Fresh
Lip balm.
Tylenol.
She named a character Jade at one point, and it like didn't work for a number of reasons. But I was like, "Did you have something green on your desk when you were picking this name?" She was like, "I totally did."
And then she just kept bringing. I mean, Jade.
Why Jade?
Well, I have a cat named Juno.
Oh,
So-
that's cool.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, it was actually her name in the shelter. That was not the name I planned on giving her.
It's a cute name, though.
It's
Well,
perfect.
Yeah. We have a friend whose cat is named Pigeon, and I totally spaced it. But she's named Pigeon because there's a woman. What is it? She rescues kittens. She has like a huge. She's like published books, and she has a whole thing. And I had completely spaced that her name was Pigeon. And when I gave this cat the name,
It was
Pigeon,
somewhere in your subconscious.
It was clearly.
It's adorable. Yeah, and my cat. I mean, we had a name planned for Juno, but the name that the shelter gave her actually fit. But I always talk about how cats make pigeon noises, and my kids call her Tomatoes. So,
Oh, that's cute.
yes. So, how many books do you write a year? Like, I know we went over how many you have and how many years, but your schedule just must be like back to back.
Well, so in 2013, we released 6 books. We had 3 novels and 3 novellas, and it was nuts. And the next year, we're like, let's only do 4. So the next year, we had 4, and it was just crazy. So I think, at the beginning, one, we really wanted to build a following in romance because romance readers are voracious and they read so fast. So we really wanted to like get on the scene and like put some books out there and have people know our name. And then I think, those early ideas are usually the low-hanging fruit, or the ideas that you've had your whole lives that you just can't wait to write the books about. But the longer we've been doing this, one, we want to get better with every book. And two, we want to make sure we're not doing the same thing over and over. And so it takes more time to write books now because we've done a lot already, and we want to make sure that we're differentiating ourselves from our backlist. So now we're doing 1 book a year, but we might go up to 2. It just sort of depends on where the ideas are. Right now we're contracted for 1, and anything that we do on top of that is just gravy.
You guys take vacations at all and relax, or are you just writing all the time?
Well, I would say the first few years we weren't good about breaks. And part of that was because we were still both working full time for the first year. So we had 6 books out before we had quit our full-time jobs. And then after that, it just felt like, I don't know, we just sort of didn't know how to take breaks, but we're good about it now.
Yeah, before it just seemed like there was just always something due.
Yeah.
And so we would just get it done.
Yeah.
Now I think that we have learned that like we have to like refill the creative well, and take better care of ourselves. And you just can't. It's hard to maintain writing 6 books a year for anyone.
Yeah. It's
Absolutely.
hard.
Unless you have a whole factory like James Patterson, but
Yeah.
I mean, right.
he's
Exactly.
not really writing them. It's a little different.
Somebody has asked if there's any chance of a TV adaptation. So we do have several things in the works. Roomies is a book that we wrote, I think in 2018 we released.
17.
I don't know what is time.
Right.
And that one we have been working with Andy Fickman is the director, and he has a production company, Oops Donuts, with Betsy Sillinger, and he has been pairing with Jenna Dewan's production company with Gene Song, and they are producing, directing, and we wrote the screenplay for that. So that script and project was just recently bought by Village Roadshow. So that one is, the next step is casting. So that's great.
Awesome.
Congratulations.
Yeah, that was really fun. We've been working on that since 2018, and it's been a really fun project.
How was writing the screenplay different than writing the book?
I mean, when you're writing a book, you aren't really limited by page count if you just write until the story is done. But when you're writing a script, like every page of a script is about a minute of a movie. And so, they usually want it to be like 110, 114. So you just sort of learn, like, number one, you don't have internal monologue. So none of that. But you just learn that like every single thing they say has to
serve more than one purpose.
Yeah.
Right. It either like, it's like plot and funny, it's character development and conflict. You have to kind of hit multiple things with each piece of dialogue. And that's really fun. And then The Unhoneymooners has been optioned by BCDF Productions, which is the same company that's doing Sally Thorne's The Hating Game, which I think is coming out in August, but I'm not sure. And so if you guys want to see that movie, make sure you see The Hating Game. We read the script for The Unhoneymooners, and it is so funny. Like, it's really, really funny. What else do we have?
Love that one. That was a great story.
Thank you. Yeah, that one, it was really fun to write that book. And that one's been doing crazy because it's been on TikTok. So The Unhoneymooners hit the New York Times list yesterday again. It's been on the list for the last few weeks. It's just like, okay.
And it's out 2019.
Yeah, it came out in 2019.
Book talk is becoming huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you can't predict it. It's like completely organic. It's people who love books talking about books. If Christina and I went on Book Talk and we're like, hey, read our book, people would be like, shh, we don't want to be marketed to. We just want to talk to our own. So we're like, all right, it's all just whatever hits.
That's really funny. Actually, Syosset Library is going to be launching a TikTok page sometime in July.
Excellent.
Yes.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, this one video had like 13 million views.
Yeah.
In just a couple days.
For your book?
For the video that sort of like, this girl did a video for the Honeymooners where she's sitting in her car and she sort of talks about, her sister got married and everybody got sick. And now there's this all expenses paid, honeymoon to Hawaii, and she's going to have to go with the best man who she hates. And everybody watching the video thought that she was telling this real story. And then at the end she goes, and that's The Unhoneymooners by Christina Lauren.
Wow.
And it had millions and millions and millions. I think it's up to like 13 million now. And this book that was 2 years old has now hit the New York Times list like 3 or 4 times since
How many
May.
books do you have to sell in order for it to hit the New York Times?
It totally depends on the week. And also the algorithm isn't totally well known. So like they weigh things differently. So let's say like you sell most of your books through Amazon. It's not sheer number. So like they weigh independent bookstores more heavily than they do mass market or national accounts like that.
Yeah.
So it's sort of this mysterious special sauce.
Everybody that watched that TikTok, that would be 13 million books sold, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't that be incredible?
I will tell you, we did not sell 13 million books from that TikTok.
No, we did not.
So we've sold a lot, and it's been really fun to watch people find it and like, I never knew about this book, and I'm gonna go buy your other ones, and we're like, excellent, enjoy.
Yeah. Free publicity. That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Just in case anybody's interested, because I know I put this in the chat, I put a link to the Turn the Page podcast interview that Evelyn and I did last year with Christina and Lauren. Syosset Library has a very prolific podcast called Turn the Page. We're a lot of fun. We've got something for everybody. Also, if anybody is interested in an email list for our upcoming virtual programs, you can email trending@syossetlibrary.org, and we will pass it along to somebody who will put you on a list to make sure you get all of the information. If anybody wants to let us know how you found out about this event, you can also put that in the chat. Christina and Lauren. So your book is now available in bookstores and libraries.
Right.
Yeah, so go to your local library and
Check it out. Go to your local indie. You can get audiobooks at independent bookstores and libraries, in case you guys didn't know that. So
Yep, and we have the book on overdrive, and we also have the physical copy at the library. If anybody's interested in putting in a request, we'll put you on hold for the book.
And if you're looking to get a book for your friend for, you know, they're going away on the first trip they've gone away on since 2020.
Yep.
Great beach read, absolutely.
Bookshop.org is really cool because they basically benefit local indies. You can even choose the one you want. So library, overdrive, indie, and whatever. So before we go, because I'm curious, and I know Evelyn always likes to ask this too, what do you like to read? Do you have time to read since you're writing so much?
Oh yeah, I mean, if you're a writer, reading should be a huge priority because you need to know what people are doing, you need to know what the market is doing, and also you just need to refill the well. So I read a lot of nonfiction. I read like mostly nonfiction, and then I read a lot of romance too, of course. So I just finished reading Bombshell by Sarah MacLean that comes out in August. And anyone who loves historical romance knows that Sarah is amazing. She writes historical romance with a very contemporary romance sensibility. So even if you're not a historical romance reader, you will absolutely pick up one of her books and feel comfortable and like you know exactly how it works. And so I've really liked that one recently.
I read obviously a lot of romance, but I also read a lot of thrillers. So I just finished Home Before Dark, I think is what it's called, by Riley Sager, and his next one comes out on Tuesday, so I'm very excited, called Survive the Night. And then we just went to Barnes & Noble yesterday, and I picked up Blood and Ash by Jennifer Armentrout. I have not read that one yet. And Big Summer by Jennifer Weiner.
I love Home Before Dark so much. So much. Riley Sager, oh my God, I love him. And like each of his books get better.
That's awesome.
I think Home Before Dark was different for me because I realize I am not a ghost person. So I didn't read the synopsis. I just bought it without reading the synopsis, and then I saw it was ghosts, and I was a little bit like, oh, because ghosts are just not usually my favorite thing. But I just love his books. Like I just love the way he writes. So
yeah, that one, I mean, I don't want to give any spoilers, but there's always a lot going on in his books. And yeah, Home Before Dark has some scenes in it that are like unforgettable in a very
snakes.
Yes. Yeah. The snake. Yeah. Yes, there is a thing that happens with snakes. Oh, somebody has their hand up, or not. You please feel free to ask the question or make a comment in the Q&A. We have like a few minutes left. Yes, but the snakes. Yeah, and let's see.
He came to the Syosset Library before the pandemic, didn't he?
He did, and we also had him as one of our first virtual author events in the very beginning. He was actually our first unofficial BYOB. Oh, sorry, you hit a button. No problem, Vanessa. But if you have any questions or comments, yeah, he was our first actual official BYOB person. But like we weren't calling it that at that point. We were just calling it virtual author events. And it was like, I think like the third week of quarantine. And he was very funny. Like he came with just like a stiff drink with ice. And he's like, I'm sorry, but I've been locked in this house with my husband for the last 3 weeks and I need a break. So that's kind of how we ended up having these virtual BYOBs, because we're like, well, you know, it's the evening, and
yep, we all need a little escape.
We all need a little escape.
Well, that's what your books are for.
There's so much. Yes.
It's more than a little escape. It's a fabulous escape. So
thank you. That's what we want to do.
We're so thrilled to read them. So now I have to wait another whole year for a new one.
Sorry. We can recommend some great authors in the meantime. There's also another really, really adorable rom-com coming out from Allie Hazelwood in September. I think it's September 14th. It's called The Love Hypothesis.
Okay.
So if anybody out there liked the science and the humor in the Soulmate Equation, you will love the Love Hypothesis as well.
Writing it down. I'm going to look for that one. Thank you. I look forward to that. Is it a friend of yours? I mean, do you guys have a writing group? No?
No, we were just
We
sent
have
a
each
copy
other.
of it. We were sent a copy of it, and I inhaled it.
Did you have to blurb it? Did you blurb it?
We did, yeah. I mean, we will only blurb books that we like, and this one I was like, I wrote a love letter, basically. If they put my entire blurb on the book, it'll be like the whole back cover. So
Oh, that's nice.
it was really fun.
We do get to read early books sometimes for our friends. We got to read Sally Thorne's next, I think it's going to be her next book. But I loved it so much that we're at the same agency, and I emailed and was like, we are throwing our hat in the ring to blurb this book. I loved it so much. So I'm really excited to see what she does with it, because we just read an early draft.
Okay. What does it have a name?
No, I don't think
No
she
name
has
yet?
anything yet.
Okay. So
Do
we'll
you
forward to-
are you planning on going on like a physical tour, or are you waiting till the next one for that?
Yeah, I mean, I think because the paperback for the Soulmate Equation comes out early spring 2022. I think it's 2/22/22, which would be amazing if they kept that date, because it's so great. So we probably won't go for that, because our next hardcover will be out in the later spring, May or June. We don't know yet. So hopefully we'll do a tour for that next book. But we might hit up a couple of bookstores in the fall if we can make our way to New York. We would love to spend some time with the people at our publisher, just to like have some face-to-face time. So maybe we'll do an event then too. We miss readers. It's really fun to do these virtual events. There's so many benefits that have come from this, and I hope that we keep a lot of the positive aspects, but there is something about being in person too that's really nice. So I think if we can keep a combination of the virtual and the in-person, that would be amazing.
Yep.
Well, if you're in New York, we'll come and see you.
We'd
Or
love
you
it.
you can come and see us at the Syosset Library, which would be
Amazing.
That would be nice. We're a short LIRR ride,
from the city. Not long at all.
and Evelyn will be jumping up and down and screaming from the
I'll pick you up at the train station. I'll
That'd
be
be amazing.
your escort to the library. Not a problem.
Sounds great. It's a date.
Okay, we look forward to that.
All right. Well, I want to thank you both for zooming in with us. I know we're going to be keeping some virtual author events, because where are you? You're in Utah right now?
Yeah, it's great. I mean, a lot of readers we would never be able to meet in person. So this is fantastic. I love that you guys have been doing this.
Same with us. There were authors we could never meet. They just would never happen. So it's beneficial to both of us.
Yep, absolutely.
All right. Evelyn, anything else before we go?
No, I just thank Christina and Lauren so much. I really appreciate you coming on and speaking with us at the Syosset Library, and love the book. Look forward to reading plenty more.
Thank you. And thank you for having us.
Thank you, guys.
It's good to see you guys again.
Anytime, literally anytime. And thank you to our audience for coming out. Even though the world is opening up again, it shows us that there is definitely still an audience for virtual programming. So thank you for coming virtually to Syosset, New York. Once again, I'm Jessica, Community Engagement Specialist at Syosset Public Library. Our main librarian host today was...
I'm Evelyn, Reader Services Librarian.
Amazing.
And of course, our amazing guests were Christina Lauren. Thanks, everybody. And tell your friends, audience, that they could watch this on our replay on Facebook Live, Syosset Library's trending page, or sometime next week, this will be up on the Syosset Library's YouTube page.
Fantastic.
Good
Thank
evening,
you, everybody. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Have a great night. Be well.
You too.